Well, good morning. Today is March 6th. So we are Wednesday, March 6th. It is day 15 of reading through the entire Bible in 102 days. So today, what we're looking at is going to be starting in Numbers 33 and going all the way to Deuteronomy chapter 7. So that's today's reading. I hope you're doing well this morning. If you're on and you want to just say like good morning or something in the chat, it helps me know that we're going through this together. It's really encouraging to me to see who's on, and I can only see who's on if there's messages in the chat. If you're new to this, if you're just checking this out, you're not sure what this is. Well, basically, this is a uh, daily Bible reading from Monday to Saturday, going through the entire Bible in a span of 102 days. And where we're at today is again Numbers chapters 33 all the way to Deuteronomy chapter 7. And so this right here is the reading schedule that I do in terms of reading live. It is Monday to Friday from 7 a.m. to about 8:30 a.m. And then Saturdays are at 10 a.m. to give time and space to be able to read with a friend or multiple friends. And this has been really, really fun. This whole challenge has been a really great growing time in terms of just my understanding of God's word has grown so much. And I hope that if as you're following along, you're seeing that as well. This right here is a document that is a collaborative notes document. So for anything that you observe in the text, anything that you noticed that you want to add to be documented along with other people's notes, this is the document for that. So it's a collaborative notes document for everyone. And so that's that. If you're curious about my notes at all, my notes are here. All the links for all these things are in the description, along with this right here, which this is just our visual representation of where we're at so far. So I've been coloring it in. There's tiny little, you won't be able to see it there because it's out of focus. But if I switch it here to the webcam, it's like all individual little blocks there, like little squares. And as you color them in, you kind of get a visual of how far we are along. So this morning, I'm excited to read. I am a little extra tired this morning, so yeah, be gracious with me. It's gonna be a good morning. It's gonna be a really good reading. I'm very excited for it. Let me just turn down the overhead lights though. There you go. That looks a little better, a little more even. Hmm. All right. Before we do start the reading, though, there is something I just need to read as a disclaimer. The version that we're reading from is the New English translation. So the scriptures quoted are from the NET Bible, https://netbible.com, copyright 1996, 2019, used with permission from Biblical Studies Press, LLC, all rights reserved. Yeah, thank you to the Net Bible for making this translation available to be used for things like this. So, I'm gonna pray, and then we'll just jump right in. Lord God, I thank you so much for this day. I thank you for this morning, this time that we have to just be present and read your word. And Lord, I pray that we would be alert and attentive to your word, that we would be guided in our hearts in our pursuit of you, that we would draw so much closer to you through this, Lord. We want to do this not just to to be able to have gone through the whole Bible in a short amount of time and that being the end result. But we want to do it to be transformed by you. We want to be transformed by your word, Lord. So I pray that this morning there would be a continued impact as you would continue to impact us and change us for your glory and your might, Lord. I pray for a boost of energy this morning that I may need, and and clarity as I read, clarity of mind, clarity of expression, clarity of speech as I read. I pray in your name, Jesus. Amen. All right, let's get into reading with Numbers 33. Actually, let me just see if there's anything. Good morning, good morning. Nice. Thank you. All right, here we go. Numbers 33. These are the journeys of the Israelites who went out of the land of Egypt by their divisions under the authority of Moses and Aaron. Moses recorded their departures according to their journeys by the commandment of the Lord. Now these are their journeys according to their departures. They departed from Ramses in the first month, on the 15th day of the first month. Now, on the day after the Passover, the Israelites went out defiantly in plain sight of all the Egyptians. Now the Egyptians were burying all their firstborn, whom the Lord had killed among them. The Lord also executed judgments on their gods. The Israelites traveled from Ramses and camped in Succoth. They traveled from Succoth and camped in Etham, which is on the edge of the desert. They traveled from Etham and turned again to Pi Ahiroth, which is before Baal Zephon, and they camped before Migdal. They traveled from Pi Hahiroth and passed through the middle of the sea into the wilderness and went 3 days' journey in the wilderness of Etham and camped in Marah. They traveled from Marah and came to Elim. In Elim there were 12 fountains of water and 70 palm trees, so they camped there. They traveled from Elim and camped by the Red Sea. They traveled from the Red Sea and camped in the wilderness of Sin. They traveled from the wilderness of Sin and camped in Dophkah. They traveled from Dophkah and camped in Alush. They traveled from Alush and camped in Rephidim, where there was no water for the people to drink. They traveled from Rephidim and camped in the desert of Sinai. They traveled from the desert of Sinai, camped at Kibroth Hatava. They traveled from Kibroth Hatava and camped at Hazeroth. They traveled from Hazeroth and camped in Rithmah. They traveled from Rithmah and camped at Rimon Perez. They traveled from Rimon Perez and camped in Libnah. They traveled from Libnah and camped at Rissa. They traveled from Rissa and camped at Kehelatha. They traveled from Kehelatha and camped at Mount Shepher. They traveled from Mount Shepher and camped in Harada. They traveled from Harada and camped in Makaloth. They traveled from Makaloth and camped in Tahath. They traveled from Tahath and camped at Terah. They traveled from Terah and camped in Mithkah. They traveled from Mithkah and camped in Hashmona. They traveled from Hashmona and camped in Moserah. They traveled from Moserah and camped in Bene Jaakan. They traveled from Bene Jaakan and camped at Hor Haggidgad. They traveled from Hor Haggidgad and camped in Jotbatha. They traveled from Jotbatha and camped in Abrona. They traveled from Abrona and camped at Ezion Geber. They traveled from Ezion Geber and camped in the wilderness of Zin, that is Kadesh. They traveled from Kadesh and camped at Mount Hor, at the edge of the land of Edom. Aaron the priest ascended Mount Hor at the command of the Lord, and he died there in the 40th year after the Israelites had come out of the land of Egypt on the first day of the month. Now Aaron was 123 years old when he died on Mount Hor. The king of Arad The Canaanite king who lived in the south of the land of Canaan heard about the approach of the Israelites. They traveled from Mount Hor and camped in Zalmanah. They traveled from Zalmanah and camped in Punon. They traveled from Punon and camped in Oboth. They traveled from Oboth and came in Lai Abarim on the border of Moab. They traveled from Lim and camped in Dibon Gad. They traveled from Dibon Gad and camped in Almon Diblathaim. They traveled from Almon Diblathaim and camped in the mountains of Abarim before Nebo. They traveled from the mountains of Abarim and camped in the Rift Valley plains by Moab along the Jordan River across from Jericho. They camped by the Jordan from Beth Jeshimoth as far as Abel Shittim in the Rift Valley plains of Moab. The Lord spoke to Moses in the Rift Valley plains of Moab along the Jordan across from Jericho. He said, "Speak to the Israelites and tell them, when you have crossed the Jordan into the land of Canaan, you must drive out all the inhabitants of the land before you. Destroy all the carved images, all their molten images, and demolish their high places. You must dispossess the inhabitants of the land and live in it, for I have given you the land to possess it. You must divide the land by lot for an inheritance among your families. To a larger group, you must give a larger inheritance, and to a smaller group, you must give a smaller inheritance. Everyone's inheritance must be in the place where his lot falls. You must inherit according to your ancestral tribes. But if you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land before you, then those whom you allow to remain will be irritants in your eyes and thorns in your side, and will cause you trouble in the land where you will be living. And what I intend to do to them, I will do to you." Okay, let's take a few notes here. Okay, so this was Numbers 33. What we saw is written account of the Israelites' wanderings from Egypt all the way to almost getting into the Promised Land. God's instructions for when they go into the Promised Land to drive the people out, to sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Yeah, okay. Destroy all places of idol worship, to divide the land according to their tribes, and to follow the Lord. All right. What if you... Actually, this... Yeah, okay. Let's keep going. So, the southern border of the land. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, "Give these instructions to the Israelites and tell them, when you enter Canaan, the land that has been assigned to you as an inheritance, the land of Canaan with its borders, your southern border will extend from the wilderness of Zin along the Edomite border, and your southern border will run eastward to the extremity of the Salt Sea. And then the border will turn from the south to the Scorpion Ascent, continue to Zin, and then its direction will be from the south of Kadesh Barnea, the south to Kadesh Barnea. Then it will go to Hazar Adar and pass over to Azmon. There The border will turn from Asmon to the stream of Egypt, and then its direction is to the sea. Man, there's like so many like complex names of places to read this morning, like right off the bat. And it's like I'm still like warming up usually like the first few chapters reading. But this has been a quick way to warm up into reading for the day. All right. And for a western border, you will have the Great Sea. This will be your western border. And this will be your northern border. From the Great Sea, you will draw a line to Mount Hor. From Mount Hor, you will draw a line to Lebo Hamath. And the direction of the border will be to Zedad. The border will continue to Ziphron, and its direction will be Hazar Enan. This will be your northern border. For your eastern border, you will draw a line from Hazar Enan to Shepham. The border will run down from Shepham to Riblah on the east side of Ain. And the border will descend and reach the eastern side of the Sea of Kinnereth. Then the border will continue down the Jordan River, and its direction will be to the Salt Sea. This will be your land, its borders, by its borders that surround it. Then Moses commanded the Israelites, "This is the land that you will inherit by lot, which the Lord has commanded to be given to the 9.5 tribes, because the tribe of the Reubenites by their families, the tribe of the Gadites by their families, and the half-tribe of Manasseh have received their inheritance. The 2.5 tribes have received their inheritance on this side of the Jordan, east of Jericho toward the sunrise." The Lord said to Moses, "These are the names of the men who are to allocate the land to you as an inheritance: Eleazar the priest and Joshua son of Nun. You must take one leader from every tribe to assist in allocating the land as an inheritance. These are the names of the men from the tribe of Judah: Caleb son of Jephunneh, from the tribe of the Simeonites; Shemuel son of Ammihud, from the tribe of Benjamin; Elidad son of Kislon, and from the tribe of the Danites; a leader, Buki son of Jogli, from the Josephites; Haniel son of Ephod, a leader from the tribe of Manasseh; from the tribe of the Ephraimites, a leader, Kemuel son of Shiftan; from the tribe of the Zebulunites, a leader, Elizaphan son of Parnach; from the tribe of the Issacharites, a leader, Paltiel son of Azan; from the tribe of the Asherites, a leader, Ahihud son of Shelomi; and from the tribe of the Naphtalites, a leader, Pedahel son of Ammihud. These are the ones whom the Lord commanded to divide up the inheritance among the Israelites in the land of Canaan. Okay. So God appoints the borders of the land that they'll inhabit. A leader from each tribe is appointed. Yeah. Well, I guess I'll add it. For the allocation of the land. All right. Numbers 35. The Levitical cities. Then the Lord spoke to Moses in the Rift Valley plains of Moab, along the Jordan, near Jericho. He said, "Instruct the Israelites to give the Levites towns to live in from the inheritance of the Israelites. To live in from the inheritance the Israelites will possess. You must also give the Levites grazing land around the towns. Thus they will have towns in which to live, and their grazing lands will be for their cattle, for their possessions, and for all their animals. The grazing lands around the towns that you will give to the Levites must extend to a distance of 500 yards from the town wall. You must measure from outside the wall of the town on the east 1,000 yards, and on the south side 1,000 yards, and on the west side 1,000 yards, and on the north side 1,000 yards, with the town in the middle. This territory must belong to them as grazing land for the towns. Now from these towns that you will give to the Levites, you must select 6 towns of refuge, to which a person who has killed someone may flee, and you must give them 42 other towns. So the total of the towns you will give the Levites is 48. You must give these together with their grazing lands. The towns you will give must be the possession of the Israelites. From the larger tribes you must give more, and from the smaller tribes fewer. Each must contribute some of its own towns to the Levites in proportion to the inheritance allocated to each. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and tell them, when you cross over the Jordan River into the land of Canaan, you must then designate some towns as towns of refuge for you, to which a person who has killed someone unintentionally may flee. And they must stand as your towns of refuge from the avenger, in order that the killer may not die until he has stood trial before the community. These towns that you must give shall be your 6 towns for refuge. You must give 3 towns on this side of the Jordan, and you must give 3 towns in the land of Canaan. They must be towns of refuge. The 6 towns will be places of refuge for the Israelites, and for the resident foreigner, and for the settler among them, so that anyone who kills any person accidentally may flee there. But if he hits someone with an iron tool so that he dies, he is a murderer. The murderer must surely be put to death. If he strikes him by throwing a stone large enough that he could die, and he dies, he is a murderer. The murderer must surely be put to death. Or if he strikes him with a wooden-hand weapon so that he could die, and he dies, he is a murderer. The murderer must surely be put to death. The avenger of blood himself must kill the murderer when he meets him. He must kill him. But if he strikes him out of hatred, or throws something at him unintentionally so that he dies, or with enmity he strikes him with his hand and he dies, the one who struck him must surely be put to death, for he is a murderer. The avenger of blood must kill the murderer when he meets him. But if he strikes him suddenly without enmity, or throws anything at him unintentionally, or with any stone large enough that a man could die without seeing him, and throws it at him, and he dies, even though he was not his enemy, nor saw his harm, then the community must judge between the slayer and the avenger of blood according to these decisions. The community must deliver the slayer out of the hand of the avenger of blood, and the community must restore him to the town of refuge to which he fled. He must live there until the death of the high priest, who is anointed with the consecrated oil. But if the slayer at any time goes outside the boundary of the town to which he had fled, and the avenger of blood finds him outside the borders of the town of refuge, and the avenger of blood kills the slayer, he will not be guilty of blood, because the slayer should have stayed in his town of refuge until the death of the high priest. But after the death of the high priest, the slayer may return to the land of his possessions. So these things must be a statutory ordinance for you throughout your generations, in all the places where you live. Whoever kills a person, any person, the murderer, must be put to death by the testimony of witnesses. But one witness cannot testify against any person to cause him to be put to death. Moreover, you must not accept a ransom for the life of a murderer who is guilty of death. He must surely be put to death. And you must not accept a ransom for anyone who has fled to a town of refuge, to allow him to return home and live on his own land before the death of the high priest. You must not pollute the land where you live, For blood defiles the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed there, except by the blood of the person who shed it. Therefore, do not defile the land that you will inhabit, in which I live, for I, the Lord, live among the Israelites. That was an interesting chapter. Yeah, the whole Avenger of Death thing and the cities of refuge is, I don't know, really interesting. And it's really interesting, the whole view in a time, in a culture, and warring tribes all around, warring city states all around, like, to have such a view of like not letting anyone get away with murder would have been huge, like a huge statement in terms of justice for the people. And I don't know, that was interesting. I'm going to take a few notes here. Let's see. Okay. Cities for the Levites, comma, Levitical cities. Cities of refuge for someone who kills someone unintentionally. If someone kills someone intentionally, they are to be put to death by the Avenger of Blood. But if it is unintentional, the person who killed the other person can flee the Avenger of Blood to go live in a city of refuge. Okay, let's keep on going. Numbers 36. Let me just check the chat real quick. All right. Actually, I just want to check the collaborative notes. All right, nothing so far. Women and land inheritance. Then the heads of the family groups of the Gileadites, the descendant of Machir, the descendant of Manasseh, who were from the Josephite families, approached and spoke before Moses and the leaders, who were the heads of the Israelite families. They said, "The Lord commanded my Lord to give the land as an inheritance by lot to the Israelites, and my Lord was commanded by the Lord to give the inheritance of our brother Zelophehad to his daughters. Now, if they should be married to one of the men from another Israelite tribe, their inheritance would be taken from the inheritance of our fathers and added to the inheritance of the tribe into which they marry. As a result, it will be taken from the lot of our inheritance. And when the Jubilee of the Israelites is to take place, their inheritance will be added to the inheritance of the tribe into which they marry. So their inheritance will be taken away from the inheritance of our ancestral tribe." Then Moses gave a ruling to the Israelites by the word of the Lord. Okay, yeah. What the tribe of the Josephites is saying is right. This is what the Lord has commanded for Zelophehad's daughter. Let them marry whoever they think best, only they must marry within the family of their father's tribe. In this way, the inheritance of the Israelites will not be transferred from tribe to tribe, but every one of the Israelites must retain the ancestral heritage. And every daughter who possesses any inheritance from any of the tribes of the Israelites must become the wife of a man from any family in her father's tribe, so that every Israelite may retain the inheritance of his fathers. No inheritance may pass from tribe to tribe, but every one of the tribes of the Israelites must retain its inheritance. As the Lord had commanded Moses, so the daughters of Zelophehad did. For the daughters of Zelophehad, Mahlah, Tirzah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Noah were married to the sons of their uncles. They were married into the families of the Manassites, the descendants of Joseph, and their inheritance remained in the tribe of their father's family. These are the commandments and the decisions that the Lord commanded the Israelites through the authority of Moses in the Rift Valley Plains by Moab, along the Jordan River, opposite Jericho. All right. I'm just going to take a couple notes actually. And then, sorry. The inheritance of the land is to be continually held by a given tribe for all the following generations. Okay. That's it for numbers. That's that's pretty crazy. We're done 4 books already. And yeah, that's just wild. That's blowing my mind. Been doing this for oh yeah, today is Wednesday. So yeah, 2 Wednesdays ago we started doing this. It's like such a short amount of time. I have never read through these books anything close to this fast. This is really cool. This is really, really exciting. I'm getting to see it all, and I hope that you are too, with such a new perspective, being able to like go through these as like a sprint. Like it's really, really neat seeing like a lot of like the big picture and the bigger picture context of some of these stories. Really, really neat. I'm really enjoying this. This is cool. Yeah, we'll keep reading here. But yeah, I'm just excited. I'm excited to see how this reading is unfolding, and like all the things that are being revealed in the word, and just so beautiful. Just yeah, so oh man. I'm a bit at a loss for words, but this is exciting. So let's start Deuteronomy. Wow. And then we will be done with the Pentateuch. That's crazy. Oh, okay. Like Friday is the last day of the Pentateuch. So that's like the first 5 books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And then after that, we are going to be starting Joshua on Saturday, which is just crazy. In like 2.5 weeks, reading through those 5 books is wild. But I'm loving it. I'm really loving it. I hope you are too. This is really fun. So let's start Deuteronomy. This is what Moses said to all of Israel in the Transjordanian wilderness, the arid Rift Valley, opposite Suf, between Paran and Tophel, Laban, Hazeroth, Di-Zahab. Now it is ordinarily an 11-day journey from Horeb to Kadesh Barnea by way of Mount Seir. However, it was not until the first day of the 11th month of the 14th year that Moses addressed the Israelites just as the Lord had instructed him to do. This took place after the defeat of King Sihon of the Amorites, whose capital was in Heshbon, and King Og of Bashan, whose capital was in Ashtaroth, in Edrei. So it was in the Transjordan in Moab that Moses began to deliver these words. The Lord our God spoke to us at Horeb and said, "You have stayed in the area of this mountain long enough. Head out and resume your journey. Enter the Amorite hill country and all its neighboring areas, including the Rift Valley, the hill country, the foothills, the Negev, and the coastal plain, all of Canaan and Lebanon as far as the great river, that is the Euphrates. Look, I have already given the land to you. Go, occupy the territory that I, the Lord, promised to give your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and to their descendants. I also said to you at that time, I am no longer able to sustain you by myself. The Lord your God has increased your population to the point that you are now as numerous as the very stars of the sky. Indeed, may the Lord, the God of your ancestors, make you 1,000 times more numerous than you are now, blessing you as he said he would. But now, can I alone bear up under the burden of your hardship and strife? Select select wise and practical men, those known among your tribes, whom I may appoint as your leaders. You replied to me that what I had said to you was good. So I chose as your tribal leaders wise and well-known men, placing them over you as administrators of groups of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens, and also as other tribal officials. I furthermore admonished your judges at that time that they should pay attention to issues among your fellow citizens and judge fairly, whether between one person and a native Israelite or a resident foreigner. They must not discriminate in judgment, but hear the lowly and the great alike, nor should they be intimidated by human beings, for judgment belongs to God. If the matter being adjudicated is too difficult for them, they should bring it before me for a hearing. So I instructed you at that time regarding everything you should do. Then we left Horeb and passed through all that immense, forbidding wilderness that you saw on the way to the Amorite hill country, as the Lord our God had commanded us to do. Finally, arriving at Kadesh Barnea, then I said to you, you have come to the Amorite hill country, which the Lord our God is about to give us. Look, he has placed the land in front of you. Go up, take possession of it, just as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, said to do. Do not be afraid or discouraged. So all of you approached me and said, let's send some men ahead of us to scout out the land and bring us back word as to how we should attack it and what the cities are like there. I thought this was a good idea. So I sent 12 men from among you, one from each tribe. They left and went up to the hill country, coming to the Eshcol Valley, which they scouted out. Then they took some of the produce of the land and carried it back to us. They also brought a report to us saying, the land that the Lord our God is about to give us is good. You were not willing to go up, however, but instead rebelled against the Lord your God. You complained among yourselves privately and said, because the Lord hates us, he brought us from Egypt to deliver us to the Amorites so they could destroy us. Oh, man. What is going to happen to us? Our brothers have drained away our courage by describing people who are more numerous and taller than we are, and great cities whose defenses appear to be as high as heaven itself. Moreover, they said they saw Anakites there. So I responded to you, do not be terrified of them. The Lord your God is about to go ahead of you. He will fight for you, just as you saw him do in Egypt and in the wilderness, where you saw him carrying you along like a man carries his son. This he did everywhere you went until you came to this very place. However, through all this, you did not have confidence in the Lord your God, who would go before you on the way to find places for you to camp, appearing in a fire at night and in a cloud by day to show you the way you ought to go. When the Lord heard you, he became angry and made this vow. Not a single person of this evil generation will see the good land that I promised to give to your ancestors. The exception is Caleb, son of Jephunneh. He will see it, and I will give him and his descendants the territory on which he has walked, because he has wholeheartedly followed me. As for me, the Lord was also angry with me on your account. He said, you will also not be able to go there. However, Joshua, son of Nun, your assistant, will go. Encourage him, because he will enable Israel to inherit the land. Also, your infants, who you thought would die on the way, and all your children, who as yet do not know good from bad, will go there. I will give them the land, and they will possess it. But as for you, turn back and head for the wilderness by the way to the Red Sea. And then you responded to me and admitted, we have sinned against the Lord. We will now go up and fight as the Lord our God has told us to do. So you each put on your battle gear and prepared to go up to the hill country. But the Lord told me, tell them this, do not go up and fight, because I will not be with you, and you will be defeated by your enemies. I spoke to you, but you did not listen. Instead, you rebelled against the Lord and recklessly went up to the hill country. The Amorite inhabitants of the area confronted you and chased you like a swarm of bees, striking you down from Seir as far as Hormah. Then you came back and wept before the Lord, but he paid no attention to you whatsoever. Therefore, you remained at Kadesh for a long time. Indeed, for the full time. Wow, this is interesting. Yeah, okay. This is Deuteronomy chapter 1. Cool, new book. So exciting. All right, so what we saw here was summary of the history of when it was time to go into the land, and they decided not to go into the land, and so they would stay in the wilderness for 40 years. Deuteronomy chapter 2. Before we do, actually, I'm just going to take a quick peek here at the collaborative notes. All of these are all collapsible, so it helps with kind of like making navigation easy. If you have any notes, any observations at any point, just throw them in here. Let's keep reading. Deuteronomy chapter 2, which I think we're going to Deuteronomy 7 today. Yeah, there you go. There we are. Numbers 33 to Deuteronomy 7 today. And then they turned and set out toward the wilderness on the way to the Red Sea, just as the Lord told me to do, detouring around Mount Seir for a long time. At this point, the Lord said to me, you have circled around this mountain long enough. Now turn north. Instruct these people as follows. You are about to cross the border of your relatives, the descendants of Esau, who inhabit Seir. They will be afraid of you, so watch yourselves closely. Do not be hostile toward them, because I am not giving you any of their land, not even a footprint, for I have given Mount Seir as an inheritance for Esau. You may purchase food to eat and water to drink from them all along the way. I, the Lord your God, have blessed your every effort. I have been attentive to your travels through this great wilderness. These 40 years I have been with you. You have lacked nothing. So we turned away from our relatives, the descendants of Esau, the inhabitants of Seir, turning from the route of the Rift Valley, which comes up from Elat and Ezion Geber, and traveling the way of the wilderness of Moab. Then the Lord said to me, do not harass Moab and provoke them to war, for I will not give you any of their land as your territory. This is because I have given Ar to the descendants of Lot as their possession. The Emites used to live there, a people as powerful, numerous, and tall as the Anakites. These people, as well as the Anakites, were also considered Rephaites. The Moabites call them Emites, or Emites. Previously, the Horites lived in Seir, But the descendants of Esau dispossessed and destroyed them and settled in their place, just as Israel did to the land it came to possess, the land the Lord gave them. Now get up and cross the Wadi Zered. So we did so. Now the length of time it took for us to go from Kadesh Barnea to the crossing of Wadi Zered was 38 years. Time for all the military men of that generation to die, just as the Lord had vowed to them. Indeed, it was the very hand of the Lord that eliminated them from within the camp until they were all gone. So it was that after all the military men had been eliminated from the community, the Lord said to me, "Today you are going to cross the border of Moab, that is, of Ar. But when you come close to the Ammonites, do not harass or provoke them, because I am not giving you any of the Ammonites' land as your possession. I have already given it to Lot's descendants as their possession." That also is considered to be the land of the Rephites. The Rephites lived there originally. The Ammonites call them Zamzumites. They are a people as powerful, numerous, and tall as the Anakites. But the Lord destroyed the Rephites in advance of the Ammonites, so they dispossessed them and settled down in their place. This is exactly what he did for the descendants of Esau, who lived in Seir, when he destroyed the Horites before them, so that they could dispossess them and settle in their area to this very day. As for the Avites, who lived in settlements as far west as Gaza, Caphtorites, who came from Crete, destroyed them and settled down in their place. Get up, make your way across Wadi Arnon. Look, I have already delivered over to you Sihon, the Amorite, king of Heshbon, and his land. Go ahead, take it, engage him in war. This very day I will begin to fill all the people of the earth with dread and to terrify them when they hear about you. They will shiver and shake in anticipation of your reproach. Then I sent messengers from the Kedemoth wilderness to King Sihon of Heshbon with an offer of peace. Let me pass through your land. I will keep strictly to the roadway. I will not turn aside to the right or the left. Sell me food for cash so that I can eat, and sell me water to drink. Just allow me to go through on foot, just as the descendants of Esau who live at Seir and the Moabites who live in Ar did for me, until I cross the Jordan to the land the Lord our God is giving us. But King Sihon of Heshbon was unwilling to allow us to pass near him, because the Lord our God had made him obstinate and stubborn, so that he might deliver him over to you this very day. The Lord said to me, "Look, I have already begun to give over Sihon and his land to you. Start right now to take his land as your possession." When Sihon and all his troops emerged to encounter us in battle at Jahaz, the Lord our God delivered him over to us, and we struck him down along with his sons and everyone else. At that time, we seized all his cities and put every one of them under divine judgment, including even the women and children. We left no survivors. We kept only the livestock and plunder from the cities for ourselves. From Aroer, which is the edge of the Wadi Arnon, it is the city in the Wadi, all the way to Gilead, there was not a town able to resist us. The Lord our God gave them all to us. However, you did not approach the land of the Ammonites, the Wadi Jabbok, the cities of the hill country, or any place else forbidden by the Lord our God. Okay. Okay, let's see. A few notes here are going to be continued summary of the journey. God gives them keeps them from attacking some nations, but gives them permission to attack and Sion, yeah, Sion, king of Heshbon. All right, Deuteronomy 3. Any comments? No. All right. How are you guys doing, by the way, as we keep reading? Is there something you found interesting so far this morning? Let me know in the chat. Let's keep reading, though. Chapter 3 of Deuteronomy. Next, we set out on the route to Bashan, but King Og of Bashan and his whole army came out to meet us in battle at Edrei. The Lord, however, said to me, "Don't be afraid of him, because I have already given him his whole army and his land to you. You will do to him exactly what you did to King Sihon of the Amorites who lived in Heshbon." So the Lord our God did indeed give over to us King Og of Bashan and his whole army, and we struck them down until not a single survivor was left. We captured all his cities at that time. There was not a town we did not take from them. 60 cities, all the region of Argob, the dominion of Og and Bashan. All these cities were fortified by high walls, gates, and locking bars. In addition, there were a great many open villages. We put all of these under divine judgment, just as we had done to King Sihon of Heshbon. Every occupied city, including women and children, but all the livestock and plunder from the cities we kept for ourselves. So at that time, we took the land of the 2 Amorite kings in the Transjordan, from Wadi Arnon to Mount Hermon. The Sidonians call Hermon Sirion, and the Amorites call it Senir. All the cities of the plateau, all of Gilead and Bashan as far as Salekah and Edrei, cities of the kingdom of Og in Bashan. Only King Og of Bashan was left of the remaining Rephites. It is noteworthy that his sarcophagus was made of iron. Does it not indeed still remain in Rabbath of the Ammonites? It is 13.5 feet long and 6 feet wide, according to standard measure. This is the land we brought under our control at that time, the territory extending from Aroer by the Wadi Arnon and half the Gilead Hill country with its cities. I gave to the Reubenites and Gadites the rest of Gilead and all Bashan, the kingdom of Og, I gave to the half-tribe of Manasseh. All the region of Argob, that is, all Bashan, is called the land of Rephaim. Jair, son of Manasseh, took all the Argob region as far as the border with the Geshurites, and Maacathites, namely Bashan, and called it by his name, Havoth Jair, which it retains to this very day. I gave Gilead to Machir, to the Reubenites and Gadites. I allocated the territory extending from Gilead as far as Wadi Arnon. The exact middle of the wadi was a boundary all the way to the Wadi Jabbok, the Ammonite border. The Rift Valley and the Jordan River were also a border from the Sea of Kinnereth to the Sea of the Rift Valley, that is, the Salt Sea. Oh, I see. Okay. Beneath the slopes of Pisgah to the east. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry to pause like that, but it finally makes sense to me, like, for a second. the the Rift Valley, what that meant, because it kept coming up, it kept coming up, it kept coming up, and that's like the valley of the dead, yeah, the Dead Sea. Um, Dead Sea. Here, let me see if I can find a picture quickly to help illustrate it. I don't want to get too distracted, too off topic. Um, but it'll make sense why it's called the Rift Valley. If I can go back to um, let's see, the this should take a just a couple seconds here. Almost there. Okay. When you're there, there's it's like a very clear um, visual as far as why it's like the Rift Valley. This is okay. Here, I'll share my screen. This right here is the view from Matsada, which is like a an old fortress. Anyways, it's all like you can see how it descends down, and you see these rifts, and then to the left over here, there is the Dead Sea. So you kind of see these rifts, these like deep carvings all along the sides. Let me see if I can maybe find another example. I mean, this is just a another example like from the same place. This is an old Roman camp, by the way. Um, yeah, but you can see how it like drops off suddenly. There's many rifts. Uh, yeah, and that's pretty much it. Oh wait, here. Actually, this video might no, it's too hazy. You can't you can't really see it. And all right, it's not loading sharp enough. But anyways, I hope this helps. Uh, oh wait, sorry, I feel like I'm in too deep now. Okay, this is it. This is the Dead Sea. These are the rifts that you can see up here, and it all goes down, and it's a huge area. So okay, back to the reading. Sorry about that. Um, At that time, I instructed you as follows: The Lord your God has given you this land for your possession. You warriors are to cross over equipped for battle before your fellow Israelites. But your wives, children, and livestock, of which I know you have many, may remain in the cities I have given you. You must fight until the Lord gives your countrymen victory, as he did you, and they take possession of the land that the Lord your God is giving them on the other side of the Jordan River. Then each of you may return to his own territory that I have given you. I also commanded Joshua at the same time. You have seen everything the Lord your God did to these two kings. He will do the same to all the kingdoms where you are going. Do not be afraid of them, for the Lord your God will personally fight for you. Moreover, at that time I pleaded with the Lord, O sovereign Lord, you have begun to show me your greatness and strength. What God in heaven or earth can rival your works and mighty deeds? Let me please cross over to see the good land on the other side of the Jordan River, this good hill country, and the Lebanon. The Lebanon, interesting. But the Lord was angry at me because of you and would not listen to me. Instead, he said to me, Enough of that. Do not speak to me any more about this matter. Go up to the top of Pisgah and take a good look to the west, north, south, and east, for you will not be allowed to cross the Jordan. Commission Joshua and encourage and strengthen him, because he will lead these people over and will enable them to inherit the land you will see. So we settled down in the valley opposite of Beth Peor. Okay. So this is continuing the summary here, but there is King Og of Bashan, and then, all right, Deuteronomy 3 notes. As God instructs, the people defeat the land across the Jordan, Transjordan, or yeah, I did not say that right. It's Transjordanian. Becomes allocated. Moses will not get to go into the promised land. Joshua will lead the people into the promised land. All right. Next chapter, Deuteronomy 4. All right. Let's see. Oh, I see a couple comments here. Tall king. Yeah, no kidding. That was like a huge coffin. Thanks for showing us the pictures. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it just kind of like suddenly clued in because it's like the Rift Valley, and it for some reason I didn't clue into it until it said it just there in the brackets, the Salt Sea, which is the Dead Sea. Now, Israel, pay attention to the statutes and ordinances I am about to teach you, so that you might live and go on to enter and take possession of the land that the Lord, the God of your ancestors, is giving you. Do not add a thing to what I command you, nor subtract from it, so that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God that I am delivering to you. You have witnessed what the Lord did at Baal Peor, how he eradicated from your midst everyone who followed Baal Peor. But you who remained faithful to the Lord your God are still alive to this very day, every one of you. Look, I have taught you statutes and ordinances just as the Lord my God told me to do, so that you might carry them out in the land that you are about to enter and possess. So all of these statutes, I skipped a line there. So be sure to do them, because this will testify of your wise understanding to the people who will learn of all these statutes and say, indeed, this great nation is a very wise people. In fact, what other great nation has a God so near to them, like the Lord our God, whenever we call on him? And what other great nation has statutes and ordinances just as this whole law that I am about to share with you today? Oh, that's cool. That's neat. Again, however, pay very careful attention, lest you forget the things you have seen and disregard them for the rest of your life. Instead, teach them to your children and grandchildren. You stood before the Lord your God at Horeb, and he said to me, assemble the people before me, so that I can tell them my commands. Then they will learn to revere me all the days they live in the land, and they will instruct their children. You approached and stood at the foot of the mountain, a mountain ablaze to the sky above it, and yet dark with a thick cloud. Then the Lord spoke to you from the middle of the fire. You heard speech, but you could not see anything. Only a voice was heard, and he revealed to you the covenant he has commanded you to keep, the 10 commandments, writing them on 2 stone tablets. Moreover, at that same time, the Lord commanded me to teach you statutes and ordinances for you to keep in the land that you are about to enter and possess. Be very careful then, because you saw no form at the time the Lord spoke to you at Horeb from the middle of the fire. This I say to you, so that you will not corrupt yourselves by making an image in the form of any kind of figure. This includes the likeness of a human male or female, any kind of land animal, any bird that flies in the sky, anything that crawls on the ground, or any fish in the deep waters under the heaven. When you look up to the sky and see the sun, the moon, the stars, the whole heavenly creation, you must not be seduced to worship and serve them, for the Lord your God has assigned them to all the people of the world. You, however, the Lord has selected and brought from Egypt, that iron smelting furnace, to be his special people, as you are today. But the Lord became angry with me because of you, and vowed that I would never cross the Jordan, nor enter the good land that he is about to give you. So I must die here in this land. I will not cross the Jordan, but you are going over and will possess that good land. Be on guard, so that you do not forget that the covenant of the Lord your God that he has made with you, and that you do not make an image of any kind, just as he has forbidden you. For the Lord your God is a consuming fire. He is a jealous God. After you have produced children and grandchildren and have been in the land for a long time, if you have become corrupt and make an image of any kind and do other evil things before the Lord your God that enrage him, I invoke heaven and earth as witnesses against you today, that you will surely and swiftly be removed from the very land you are about to cross the Jordan to possess. You will not last long there before you will surely be annihilated. Then the Lord will scatter you among the peoples, and there will be very few of you among the nations where the Lord will drive you. There you will worship gods made by human hands, wood and stone, that can neither see, hear, eat, nor smell. But if you seek the Lord your God from there, you will find him. Indeed, you seek him with all your heart. Indeed, you seek him with all your heart and soul. In your distress, when all these things happen in your future days, if you return to the Lord your God and obey him, for he is a merciful God. He will not let you down or destroy you, for he cannot forget the covenant with your ancestors that he confirmed by oath to them. Indeed, ask about the distant past, starting from the day God created humankind on earth, and ask from one end of heaven to the other whether there has ever been such a great thing as this, or even a rumor of it. Have a people ever heard the voice of God speaking from the middle of fire, as you yourselves have, and lived to tell about it? Or has God ever before tried to deliver a nation from the middle of another nation, accompanied by judgments, signs, wonders, war, strength, power, and other very terrifying things like the Lord your God did for you in Egypt before your very eyes? You have been taught that the Lord alone is God. There is no other besides him. From heaven he spoke to you in order to teach you, and on earth he showed you his great fire, from which you also heard his words. Moreover, because he loved your ancestors, he chose their descendants who followed them, and personally brought you out of Egypt with his great power to dispossess nations greater and stronger than you, and brought you here to this day to give you their land as your property. Today, realize and carefully consider that the Lord is God in heaven above and on earth below. There is no other. Keep his statutes and commandments that I am setting forth today, so that it may go well with you and your descendants, that you may enjoy longevity in the land that the Lord your God is about to give you as a permanent possession. Then Moses selected 3 cities in the Transjordan toward the east. Anyone who accidentally killed someone without hating him at the time of the accident could flee to one of those cities and be safe. These cities are Bezer in the wilderness plateau for the Reubenites, Ramoth in Gilead for the Gadites, and Golan in Bashan for the Manasseites. Manasseites. This is the law that Moses set before the Israelites. These are the stipulations, statutes, and ordinances that Moses spoke to the Israelites after he had brought them out of Egypt in the Transjordan, in the valley opposite Beth Peor, in the land of King Sihon, of the Amorites who lived in Heshbon. It is he whom Moses and the Israelites attacked after they came out of Egypt. They possessed his land and that of King Og of Bashan, both of whom were Amorite kings in the Transjordan to the east. Their territory extended from Aroer at the edge of the Arnon Valley as far as Mount Sion, that is, Hermon, including the Rift Valley of the Transjordan in the east to the sea of the Rift Valley beneath the slopes of Pisgah. Whoa. There's a lot in this chapter. That was very, very dense. Very, whoa. Okay. Could spend so long studying this chapter. Okay. The people are to keep the covenant. If they do, things will go well, and the surrounding nations will see that they are a wise people, and they will recognize God through them. But if they don't, they will be invaded, they will be taken away. They will be outnumbered. Paints a very clear picture that this people's strength is not their own. Their strength comes from God. There is only one God, and he is a jealous God. They are not to make any kinds of images of him or worship any other thing. Anything. Other than God. Oh man, there's so much. Really cool chapter. All right, Deuteronomy chapter 5. Then Moses called all the people of Israel together and said to them, "Listen, Israel, to the statutes and ordinances that I am about to deliver to you today. Learn them and be careful to keep them. The Lord our God made a covenant with us at Horeb. He did not make this covenant with our ancestors, but with us. We who are here today, all of us living now. The Lord spoke face to face with you at the mountain from the middle of the fire. I was standing between the Lord and you at that time to reveal the Lord's message to you, because you were afraid of the fire, and I would not go up the mountain." He said, "I am the Lord your God, he who brought you from the land of Egypt, from the place of slavery. You must not have any other gods besides me. You must not make for yourself an image of anything in heaven above, on earth below, or in the waters beneath. You must not worship or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. I punish the sons, grandsons, and great-grandsons for the sins of the fathers who reject me. But I show covenant faithfulness to the thousands who choose me and keep my commandments. You must not make use of the name of the Lord your God for worthless purposes, for the Lord will not exonerate anyone who abuses his name that way. Be careful to observe the Sabbath day, just as the Lord your God has commanded you. You are to work and do all your tasks in 6 days. But the seventh day is a Sabbath of the Lord your God. On that day you must not do any work, you, your son, your daughter, your male slave, your female slave, your ox, your donkey, any other animal, or the resident foreigner who lives with you, so that your male and female slaves, like yourself, may have rest. Recall that you were slaves in the land of Egypt, and that the Lord your God brought you out of there by strength and power. That is why the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. Honor your father and your mother, just as the Lord your God has commanded you to do, so that your days may be extended, and that it may go well with you in the land that he is about to give you. You must not murder. You must not commit adultery. You must not steal. You must not offer false testimony against another. You must not desire another man's wife. You should not crave his house, his field, his male and female servants, his ox, his donkey, or anything else he owns. The Lord said these things to your entire assembly at the mountain from the middle of the fire, the cloud, and the darkness with a loud voice. And that was all he said. Then he inscribed the words on 2 stone tablets and gave them to me. Then, when you heard the voice from the midst of the darkness, while the mountain was ablaze, all your tribal leaders and elders approached me. You said, the Lord our God has shown us his great glory, and we have heard him speak from the middle of the fire. It is now clear to us that God can speak to human beings, and they can keep on living. But now, why should we die? Because this intense fire will consume us. If we keep hearing the voice of the Lord our God, we will die. Who is there from the entire human race who has heard the voice of the living God speaking from the middle of the fire as we have, and has lived? You go near so that you can hear everything the Lord our God is saying, and then you can tell us whatever he says to you. Then we will pay attention and do it. When the Lord heard you speaking to me, he said to me, I have heard what these people have said to you. They have spoken well. If only it would really be their desire to fear me and obey all my commandments in the future, so that it may go well with them and their descendants forever. Go and tell them, return to your tents. But as for you, remain here with me so I can declare to you all the commandments, statutes, and ordinances that you are to teach them, so that they can carry them out in the land I am about to give them. Be careful, therefore, to do exactly what the Lord your God has commanded you. Do not turn right or left. Walk just as he commanded you, so that you may live, that it may go well with you, and that you may live long in the land you are going to possess. All right. Deuteronomy 5. Wow. Okay. It's the 10 Commandments. There is... Okay. The 10 Commandments. Come on. I was standing between the learning and the time. Okay. Moses communicates between God and the people. Moses was the one who went up to God because the people were afraid hearing his voice. Neat. Very neat. The people are to keep the commandments, that it would go well with them. All right, Deuteronomy 6. Exhortation to keep the covenant principles. Now, these are the Now these are the commandments, statutes, and ordinances that the Lord your God instructed me to teach you, so that you may carry them out in the land where you are headed, and that you may so revere the Lord your God, that you will keep all his statutes and commandments that I am giving you, your children, and your grandchildren, all your lives, to prolong your days. Pay attention, Israel, and be careful to do this, so that it may go well with you, and that you may increase greatly in number. As the Lord, the God of your ancestors, said to you, you will have a land flowing with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God the Lord is one. You must love the Lord your God with your whole mind, your whole being, and all your strength. These words I am commanding you today must be kept in mind, and you must teach them to your children and speak of them as you sit in your house, as you walk along the road, as you lie down, and as you get up. You should tie them as a reminder on your forearm and fasten them as symbols on your forehead. Inscribe them on the door frames of your houses and gates. Then, when the Lord your God brings you to the land he promised your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give you, a land with large, fine cities you did not build, houses filled with choice things you did not accumulate, hewn out cisterns you did not dig, and vineyards and olive groves you did not plant, and you eat your fill. Be careful not to forget the Lord who brought you out of Egypt, that place of slavery. You must revere the Lord your God, serve him, and take oaths using only his name. You must not go after other gods, those of the surrounding peoples, for the Lord your God is present among you. Who is present among you is a jealous God. His anger will erupt against you and remove you from the land. You must not put the Lord your God to the test as you did at Massah. Keep his commandments very carefully, as well as the stipulations and statutes he commanded you to observe. Do whatever is proper and good before the Lord, so that it may go well with you, and that you may enter and occupy the good land that he promised your ancestors, that you may drive out all your enemies, just as the Lord said. When your children ask you later on, what are the stipulations, statutes, and ordinances that the Lord our God commanded you, you must say to them, we were Pharaoh's slaves in Egypt, but the Lord brought us out of Egypt in a powerful way, and he brought signs and great devastating wonders on Egypt, on Pharaoh, and on his whole family before our very eyes. He delivered us from there so that he could give us the land he had promised our ancestors. The Lord commanded us to obey all these statutes and revere him, so that it may always go well for us, and he may preserve us, as he is to this day. We will be innocent if we carefully keep all these commandments before the Lord our God, just as he demands. All right. The people are to keep all the Lord's commands. God is one. There is one God. And this verse here, verses 4 and 5, I think I just gotta copy paste these. These are awesome. Yeah, goes to, Jesus saying the first and greatest commandment. That's cool. Let's keep going and go through the last chapter of the morning. Deuteronomy chapter 7. Dispossession of non-vassals. When the Lord your God brings you to the land... Sorry, I just saw a couple comments come in. Oops. Yeah, keeping fixed on Jesus. Absolutely. We got to do that every day, all the time. Actually, I like that. I want to add it. They are to stay fixed on him. Okay. right, there you go. Sorry. When the Lord your God brings you to the land that you are going to occupy and forces out many nations before you, Hittites, Girgashites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, 7 nations more numerous and powerful than you, and he delivers them over to you, and you attack them, you must utterly annihilate them. Make no treaty with them, and show them no mercy. You must not intermarry with them. Do not give your daughters to their sons, or take their daughters for your sons, for they will turn your sons away from me to worship other gods. Then the anger of the Lord will erupt against you, and he will quickly destroy you. Instead, this is what you must do to them. You must tear down their altars, shatter their sacred pillars, cut down their sacred Asherah poles, and burn up their idols. For you are a people holy to the Lord your God. He has chosen you to be his people, prized above all others on the face of the earth. It is not because you were more numerous than all the other peoples that the Lord favored and chose you. For, in fact, you were the least numerous of all peoples. Rather, it is because of his love for you and his faithfulness to the promise the promise he solemnly vowed to your ancestors, that the Lord brought you out with great power, redeeming you from the place of slavery, from the place of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the power of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. So realize that the Lord your God is the true God, the faithful God, who keeps covenant faithfully with those who love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations, but who pays back those who hate him as they deserve and destroys them. He will not ignore those who hate him, but will repay them as they deserve. So keep the commandments, statutes, and ordinances that I today am commanding you to do. If you obey these ordinances and are careful to do them, the Lord your God will faithfully keep covenant with you as he promised your ancestors. He will love and bless you and make you numerous. He will bless you with many children, with the produce of your soil, your grain, your new wine, your olive oil, the offspring of your oxen, and the young of your flocks in the land that he promised your ancestors to give you. You will be blessed beyond all peoples. There will be no barrenness among you or your livestock. The Lord will protect you from all sickness, and you will not experience any of the terrible diseases that you knew in Egypt. Instead, he will inflict them on all those who hate you. You must destroy all the people whom the Lord your God is about to deliver over to you. You must not pity them or worship their gods, for that will be a snare to you. If you think, these nations are more numerous than I, how can I dispossess them? You must not fear them. You must carefully recall that what the Lord your God did to Pharaoh and all Egypt, the great judgments you saw, the signs and wonders, the strength and power by which he brought you out. Thus the Lord your God will do to all the people you fear. Furthermore, the Lord your God will release hornets among them until the very last ones who hide from you perish. You must not tremble in their presence, for the Lord your God, who is present among you, is a great and awesome God. He, the God who leads you, will expel the nations little by little. You will not be allowed to destroy them all at once, lest the wild animals overrun you. The Lord your God will give them over to you. He will throw them into a great panic until they are destroyed. He will hand over their kings to you, and you will erase their very names from memory. Nobody will be able to resist you until you destroy them. You must burn the images of their gods, but do not covet the silver and gold that covers them, so much that you take it for yourself and thus become ensnared by it, for it is abhorrent to the Lord your God. You must not bring any abhorrent thing into your house and thereby become an object of divine wrath along with it. You must absolutely detest and abhor it, for it is an object of divine wrath. All right, that was the last chapter of the morning. I'm just going to take a couple quick notes on it. This was neat. Um, yeah, actually, I think I'm gonna end the live stream. I'll take my notes afterwards. This was a cool chapter, really cool reading this morning. It's been really neat reading with you. Thank you for being here with me, and I hope this helped you learn and understand a bit more. As we've seen, man, yeah, we've seen a lot today, but there were a lot of like good summaries, even just kind of like reminders of what God has done, and the importance in our own lives to be reminded by reading these stories, reminded in our own lives what God has done. Like, really important, because I guess it just shows how forgetful people are. And it's just by nature we're forgetful. And so let's pray, and then let's go and just love God with everything that we are today. Lord God, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for the reading of your word. Lord, thank you for how you are shaping us and molding us into your likeness. Thank you that we are made in your image. Thank you that you have called us. You've made a way for us to know you. Lord, thank you that you, God, in your love, did not come to us because of anything that we deserved. But Lord, you are a loving God. You are the one true God who reigns and who loves and cares for his people. Thank you that we get to see that over and over and over again. Lord, may we hold fast to you. May we be so devoted to you that we keep reminding ourselves of you over and over and over again, that we wouldn't let anything be a snare to us, but that we would be just so fixed on you, so devoted to you, so desiring to just serve you with everything that we are and everything that we do, that all of us would just be consumed in worship of you as we go through our lives, as we go and live out day to day, living with you, guiding us, with you being our life, your spirit indwelling us. Lord, thank you so much. I pray in your name, Jesus. Amen. Have a wonderful day serving God, and yeah, let's go out and just represent him everywhere we go, as we've been called to do so beautifully. I'll see you tomorrow.